Tonight on Joy News Prime, Medina MP Francis Sosu is a wanted man as the police received the blessing of the Kumasi District Court to arrest and detain the MP. But MP's lawyers filed a suit to set aside the suit.
The prosecution says that if he doesn't come, we've demonstrated we don't want him. That's all. He's ready to fight his court, and we will fight the court.
Majority and minority locked up in intense lobbying to reach a compromise. As Joy News learns, the NDC side has reduced their demands ahead of the motion to seek to reverse the rejection of the 2022 budget. Also in this bulletin, National Coalition for Proper Human Sexual Rights and Family Values claim the practice of homosexuality is a mental disorder. And MP Sosu Ekufulin says some of the provisions in the bill are problematic.
That's far-fetched.
But that is what the actual wording of the bill says, when you look at it critically. So it is through this engagement that you draw the attention of the proponents to some of the more disturbing aspects of the bill. And then when we're doing the clause-by-clause interrogation, we amend, delete, add, and clean it up, more or less. So all the questions we're asking, when people ask whether you are for or against the bill, I said they're missing the point.
And in business,
of Statistical, Social and Economic Research describes 1.75% E-levy as punitive and calls for a review of the policy.
Our proposal will be a levy of 0.5 to 0.75%. We think that would be very minimal. People might complain, but they will still enjoy the service. And then gradually be raking all the revenue. We feel that the 1.7%, 75% is punitive.
My name is Aisha Ibrahim. The news is coming to you live from our studios in Kokom Limle. We are on Go TV channel 144, DSTV channel 421, on DTT because we're free to air. We are your home of independent, fearless and credible journalism. Do stay tuned. Many thanks for choosing us. Medina MP Francis Sosu is a wanted man. The police has received the blessings of the Kumasi District Court to arrest and detain the MP after he failed to show up in court for the third time. He's accused of destroying public property and unlawfully blocking a public road. The MP was supposed to show up in court this morning, but his lawyers say he was attending to parliamentary business, a reason they had advanced on the two previous occasions he failed to show up. The MP was supposed to show up in court, but he refused, and his lawyers say he was attending to parliamentary business.
It is open knowledge, and we have told the court that that's why he can't come. He's on national duty, so he can't come. The court says that, the prosecution says that if he doesn't come, we've demonstrated we don't want him. That's all. He's ready to fight his court, and we will fight the court. But exercising a right that the law grants you by filing a motion and others does not stop the court from saying that we cannot exercise that right. So we will come back to this court. This issue that then we will advise ourselves. We will come back to the court. If it is true that he is in parliamentary committee or he's not gone for the parliamentary committee, I think it is best for the public to judge whether he went there or he didn't go there. Right. I have told the court what I know, and I have integrity, I have credibility, and I'm sure the Honorable Sosu would love to have been here, but because of the duty in Parliament and the position as the deputy ranking, he could not come. That is why we have come. We've been truthful, and if will be punished for being truthful, I don't think that it is. So we'll see what we'll do after.
Last week, Mr. Sosu said he feels targeted by the state for his activism.
We are doing politics, and we cannot undermine the impact of what we're doing. There have been very major things in this country, and I've been a very huge and loud voice on them. I recall When, for example, the Ghana Bar president once upon a time had an issue, I was one of the voices that said he should resign. When the Chief Justice was implicated in $5 million bribery allegation before the General Legal Council, I was one of the people who was insisting that he should resign. And I made very, what I would call very strong statements, which I know that people in power would definitely not be happy with those statements. And then when issues were going out of hand, I was part of people who are introducing bills to remove CJ from the General Legal Council, remove some of the senior judges from the General Legal Council. So these are not things that we should take lightly. And many people will not feel will not feel so great about these things. I believe it can be a good grounds for people to target me, and I will not be surprised if I'm targeted for harm or any of those things. Honestly, I felt very insecure by the things the police did. Yes, I felt my security had been compromised to the extent that even when the matter before the Parliament committee, they could even go ahead and then interdict my personal bodyguard. Clearly, you've taken away my security. And
So that bodyguard is still not with you?
Yes, absolutely. I'm supposed to be entitled to a police bodyguard, but once you've interdicted him, it means that he cannot work. So for me, it is not appropriate.
But you have a replacement?
I don't have a replacement. And you don't just get replacements for those. You need to be sure of who is coming and so on and so forth, because...
So there was a replacement, but you were not sure of the security?
I don't have a replacement.
The police administration has not made any effort to replace?
Not at all. And it means that it will take a personal effort to either get a personal, security until such a time that this whole saga is resolved. Shouldn't government be asking a question? Why would a member of parliament be the one to lead demonstration together with his people? Why would government not asking the question? So where is the contractor who had signed 11.5 million Ghana cedis contract and never showed up on the road for over 1 year? Shouldn't government be asking questions? Who gave the contract? Why are you not supervising? Why is the person not on the road? Why? So what is a sanction regime for people who don't do their job?
Lawyer for Sosu Adawudu has filed a stay of proceedings to set aside criminal summons. My colleague Kwekwa Sante will walk us through the legal suit. Kwekwa Sante, what does it say?
So, Aisha, just like you said, this summons is being sought to be set aside by lawyer for Sosu, Victor Kojogan Adawudu. And on their face, it says motion on notice by Victor Kojogan Adawudu of the chambers mentioned, who are solicitors, to set aside the proceedings and the criminal summons that have been filed against the MP. This suit is also seeking to stay proceedings until the time that this substantive motion to set aside the summons will be heard. And this case, as we know, has been adjourned to 12 January 2021. But essentially, the crux of the issue that the honorable members' lawyers are arguing is that the application and the specific charges that have been filed against the MP are not true. And so, of course, the police are arguing that this MP was engaged in conduct that distracted a public highway as well as destroyed public property. They don't want to see the entirety of this trial. They are seeking to set it aside. Let me read some portions of this application that has been filed. They are saying that in the exercise of the constitutional and the rights of the MP, the demonstration was organized in accordance with the laws of the land, and the police were notified in accordance with the Public Order Act. And at the said demonstration, the police were available to provide security for the demonstrators and also to control both human and vehicular movements on the said date as the citizens were going about their constitutional rights. Essentially, the argument of Sosu's lawyers is that the specific charges that have been filed against him are the figments of the imaginations of the police. It is not something that actually happened on the day that the demonstrations happened. He's saying that he did not distract any public property. He wants the police to state specifically what public property he has destroyed. And also to say that in the course of the demonstration, of course, a few things might have happened where the youth might have tried to block the road. But he, as member of parliament, was actually there try and convince the youth to stop doing that. And so it's an anomaly for the police to seek to put it on him as the person who blocked the road or invariably destroyed public property. So he's seeking to set aside these charges, and whilst pending that this suit and the main issue will be heard, he's saying that they should stay all the proceedings until the time that the substantive issues have been dealt with, Aisha.
Right. So, Sosu's lawyers are filing a stay of execution, and it's something we are monitoring. We'll bring you details as and when we have it. But tonight, there could be a breakthrough in the standoff between the majority and minority caucus in Parliament over the 2022 budget impasse. Joy News is learning the minority side, after a meeting, decided to reduce their set of demands from 5 to 3. Minority leader Haruna Idris, in a statement, demand government suspend the electronic transaction levy, withdraw the Japan Minerals royalties deal, provide for the tidal wave disaster, as well as rewarding of the government's Aka oil deal and review of the benchmark values for imports. We are learning two of the demands are off. Joining us has learned of serious engagement between leaders of the majority and the minority to reach a consensus. This definitely must happen, especially because the government needs the approval of the budget to spend. This is how events unfolded in Parliament last Friday.
What do you think you are? Nothing of what I say. Honorable members,
The minority, in a statement signed by its leader Haruna Idris, wants the government to suspend the electronic transaction levy. They also want the Japan Minerals royalties deal to be withdrawn and a provision made for the tidal waves disaster. Again, the minority wants a rewording of the government Aka oil deal and a review of the benchmark values. Listen to the majority leader, Oseche Mensah-Bonsu, promising the majority will tomorrow move a motion to reverse the rejection of the budget.
Be that as it may, he went ahead, did what he did in absence because we were not in the chamber. And then went ahead to state that the motion on the budget, as moved by the Minister of Finance on Wednesday, the 17th of November, is lost. That whole procedure was unconstitutional. As far as we are concerned, it's null and void. There's no binding effect on anybody. Now, we say so because, and so the motion on the budget, as far as we are concerned, has not been pronounced on by Parliament. It's still standing in the name of the Minister for Finance. Yeah.
The constitutionality or otherwise of Parliament's decision last Friday's rejection of the budget is splitting heads. At the center of the controversy is the dictates of Article 104, which says any such decision must be taken with more than half of MPs. But the minority leader, Haruna Idris, says Parliament acted within the confines of the law. His chief whip, Muntaka Mubarak, is blaming the majority leader, Oseche Mensah-Bonsu, for failing to lead his side.
I mean, it's just too unfortunate. I overheard the majority leader of Sosu saying that the speaker should bow his head in shame. In essence, it is, if anybody has to bow his head in shame, it is he, because he has become a spent layer and has how to live his usefulness as a leader. Because look, how do you have 137 members plus an independent member who has chosen to do business with you? And you knew from the day the debate started that everything, the posture, everything points to the fact that the minority were going to oppose this thing. And then the day came, you didn't have your number. In fact, on Tuesday, before the Friday, he claimed to have intercepted the message that I sent to my caucus, the trail language. And he was arrogantly showing to others, look, he has given his people trail language. Yes, but to what end did he use it? He didn't. If we in opposition, with very little resources, we could marshal all our 137, and you with government behind you, you couldn't marshal your forces. Who are you blaming? You should rather blame yourself. You had all your 138 in the chamber. We will not be where we are. You simply vote.
My colleague Evans Mensah has been monitoring the meetings and he joins us via Zoom for more. Evans, what have you been picking from this meeting?
In fact, Aisha, in the last few minutes, prior to the last few minutes, we understood that both sides had an agreement to meet to try and reach some consensus on some of the key issues. In the last few minutes, it's come to my attention from the leadership of the minority side that the meetings that had been planned, in fact, didn't happen. Now, from what I've heard, the meetings, the majority side didn't actually show up for the meeting, and that no meeting happened, and that they kept saying that they were coming for the meeting and that the meeting hasn't happened, except to say that the minority side themselves had met earlier today on the 5 conditions that they laid out and isolated a few of them that they were willing to compromise on. So 3 of the issues will remain that they want to push forward. The 3 issues being the rejection of the E-levy, also a provision should be made for the Cater Sea Defense project, and they also vehemently want government to as a matter of urgency consider some of the key issues within the budget framework that will bring relief to the people. But that was done with the expectation that they were now going to go into a bigger meeting with the majority side, who they had also hoped will come with their own set of issues that they were willing to compromise on. From what I understand, that big meeting had not happened yet. There's still a fair bit of time between now and tomorrow. What tends to happen with these things is anything could happen between now and tomorrow that could change a lot. What we know will happen tomorrow, as far as the majority side is concerned, is they are determined to put through a motion of rescission that would, in essence, undo what happened on Friday, and then they can now go forward and call for a fresh vote on the budget.
So with this in sight, what do you envisage tomorrow, especially as the Speaker of Parliament is out of the country?
I mean, tomorrow is going to be very interesting. I mean, nobody knows for sure what will play out, except for what we've heard from the majority side, that they would attempt to, file this motion of rescission tomorrow. And then obviously, once that is carried, they would definitely hope then to table a fresh process for another vote to be taken on the budget. Now, the situation they found themselves in on Friday was that they didn't have enough people. They didn't have enough of their people in the House. It is, from what I'm hearing from the majority side, they now have the full complement of 138 members, of course, including that one independent candidate who happens to be the second Deputy Speaker of Parliament, all now in attendance and should be in Parliament tomorrow. The minority side will bring their 137 to the House as well. And so that one independent candidate will make a difference tomorrow if this comes down to a vote.
Okay.
But there are people on both sides who hope that it won't come down to a vote anymore, and that the government side will make some concessions on some of the key issues that the minority have raised. And the minority side, as I've indicated, also are willing to, make some compromises. So there is consensus on the budget, so to speak. So we see normal service returns when the budget is then passed by the entire House.
This is something we'll be monitoring. Evans Mensah is head of our political desk, but of course we are monitoring this tomorrow. and definitely will bring you updates of what transpires in Parliament. There are concerns about the Deputy Speaker, the first Deputy Speaker who will be in the seat because Speaker of Parliament has travelled. But Evans indicates that, I mean, there's consensus not to go through the voting, right, Evans?
Not the consensus yet. There are people in both sides who want that approach, who want both sides to agree, find a middle ground, right? As to whether those voices will carry the day or not, we wait to see what happens tomorrow. I mean, you know, in negotiations, it has to be a give and take. What are you willing to take? What are you willing to give? Something definitely has to give for this to happen. And it comes down to what government is willing to give and what the minority side is willing to give. So where compromise will happen. If that happens, then of course we won't see this go down to a vote tomorrow, and it will simply be carried the way it's always been when budgets have read and Parliament is called upon to approve or reject it.
All right, Evans Mensah is head of our political desk, and now we're still in Parliament because the National Coalition for Proper Human Sexual Rights and Family Values claimed the practice of homosexuality is a mental disorder. The group also claimed out of about 30 million Ghanaian population, only 0.2% are involved in the act. That's not all. The group further claimed only 6% out of the homosexual population are born with those tendencies, whilst over 93% learned the act through peer pressure, curiosity, adventurism, among others. Professor Akwesio say a member of the coalition has been addressing the Parliamentary Committee tasked to consider a memo on the anti-LGBT bill.
So anybody tells you that, look, my condition is normal for me, it is false. There is a scientific determination of what is normal. And I'm saying that 1 to 3% of the population as homosexuals cannot be said to be normal because they fall outside the Gaussian distribution. Having said so, the other question is it mental illness or not? By definition, yes, it is mental illness. It is. And by the way, mental illness does not mean the person is gone naked on the streets. You could be mentally ill and yet very well dressed. So the fact that the person may be well dressed does not make the person normal or well. In fact, by definition, it is. And you go through how we define something as mental illness. We have a set of criteria for diagnosing mental illness. So if you hear somebody has depression, somebody has schizophrenia, the person satisfies these 5 criteria. In fact, the first 4 are mandatory. The 5th may or may not be there. So there must be a departure from the norm. Departure, that makes it abnormal from the Gaussian distribution I showed. That departure must be severe. That departure must be persistent. And it must cause pain or distress to the person or the society. So if I have a certain behavior that causes me pain or causes pain or distress to the rest of the people, plus the 3 others, that by definition constitutes mental illness. And the 5th is that it may be associated with other abnormalities. It may, because it's not always so. There are some conditions that we call it circumscribed abnormality. That is still a mental illness. Now these days, if you put this argument, the degenerate science, and I say degenerate, will say, oh, but you've removed sexual perversion from the list of conditions. Just to satisfy an ideological stand, they have deliberately removed sexual perversion. So they'll look at all those things and say that once they remove homosexuality that we say that we are removing from the list of abnormalities, it used to be in a class of conditions. And those things still remain. Pedophilia, a 60-year-old man decides that my interest in sex is to go for a 2-year-old girl, and not just once, that is my persistence. Pedophilia is abnormal, it's mental illness.
Ablekuma West MP Eslo Wusekufo says the promotion of sexual human rights and family value bill in its current form discriminates against members of the LGBT community. In the view of the MP, if oral sex amongst heterosexuals is an offense under the country's current law, yet permitted, then proponents of the bill should avoid gagging members of the same sex indulged in those acts. She also observed that the bill could be rendered meaningless by the end end of the committee's deliberation. She insisted some of the provisions are problematic. Speaking to Joy News' Kwesi Parker Wilson, the Minister of Communications said the demand for her to state her position on the bill is irrelevant.
Not even too interested in the for and against aspect of it. When you're crafting legislation, every word has a meaning. And we have to be mindful of its conformity with our laws, existing legislation, the Constitution, and international conventions and obligations that we've signed up to. So many of the questions that are being asked are to elicit more information from those who presented memoranda on one aspect of it or the other. I was concerned this morning, and I think I raised that point, with some unintended consequences of the bill. When you look at the definition of Ghanaian family values and the criminalization of those who don't promote or support or act in conformity with those defined family values. And so some unintended consequences may be the criminalization of untruthfulness, lack of compassion.
You talk about laziness?
Laziness, yes, if you're not hardworking or disciplined or don't exhibit good neighborliness.
Well, listen, that's far-fetched.
But that is what the actual wording of the bill says, when you look at it critically. So it is through this engagement that you draw the attention of the proponents to some of the more disturbing aspects of the bill. And then when we're doing the clause-by-clause interrogation, we amend, delete, add, and clean it up, more or less. So all the questions we're asking, when people ask whether you are for or against the bill, I said they're missing the point.
Yeah, particularly you have been asking whether you are for or against.
It's neither here nor there.
The impression, many, in fact, I've checked Facebook comments, it's Facebook Live, I've checked some comments, and they're asking, I mean, are you support or are you against the bill? Because some of the commenters feel your questioning sought to impugn or pollute the bill.
Like which ones?
Well, that's general.
You know, I've just given you an illustration of some of the provisions that I find problematic, or the definition of intersex as somebody who is, you know, and I've read it through and through and made some comments about it. Act 1, Clause 1. Someone who has a biological anomaly, including a person who is intersex, is affected by this bill. A biological anomaly, what does that mean? You know, it is so loosely couched that it can affect people who, or groups of people who were not intended in the minds of the drafters of the bill to be caught by it. So our job as a committee is to interrogate the words, their positioning, what they mean, look at it in conjunction with other existing legislation, international conventions that we've signed up to.
Still to come in business, Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research describes 1.7% E-levy as punitive and calls for a review.
Proposal will be a levy of 0.5 to 0.75%. We think that would be very minimal. People might complain, but they will still enjoy the service. And then gradually, you rake in all the revenue. We feel that the 1.7%, 75% is punitive.
There's more in business with Darryl Kwao.
Hello, welcome to Business. My name is Darryl Kwao. I've got two stories for you, beginning with this one. The Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, ISE, has described the 1.75% electronic transaction levy introduced by the government in the 2022 budget as punitive. According to its director, Professor Peter Korte, the e-levy should rather be pegged at a rate between 0.5 and 0.7%. There's more in this report.
At the review of the 2022 budget statement, the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research called for a further reduction in the E-levy in order not to overburden Ghanaians with many indirect taxes. According to its director, Professor Peter Korte, the proposed rate from his institution will face less resistance from the public and also yield significant revenue for national development. He explained further that though the policy is a good one, the government should embark on stakeholder consultations to get the E-levy reviewed.
The need for revenue enhancement is understandable. We need to raise more revenue. However, taxing electronic transfers are currently proposed an optimal way. That's the question we again ask. On the other hand, assuming it is price elasticity is very low, in other words, people don't really mind. No matter what price you impose, they will still buy or use the service. It's still likely to, although you get additional revenue, it's still likely to affect other businesses and affect the cost of doing business. It will affect output, it will affect employment, as well as the pass-on effect on cost of living. But however, if in the long run people can substitute, in other words, there are other options, then that becomes a problem. Your ability to raise the revenue will be challenged. It will have potential impact on financial inclusion, the cash-like economy, and the potential acceptance and usage of the soon-to-be introduced the e-city will be threatened. So I think we ought to look at this thing very, very carefully. Our proposal will be a levy of 0.5 to 0.75%. We think that would be very minimal. People might complain, but they will still enjoy the service. And then gradually, you rake in all the revenue. Over time, you review. You do your estimations, empirical, incidence analysis, etc. And you review if you need to gradually increase the levy. But we feel that the 1.7%, 75% is punitive.
He also called for a dialogue in Parliament between the majority and the minority to prevent eroding of investor confidence and also keep the exchange rate relatively stable.
Everybody wants to work in an uncertain environment. Investors will not work in an uncertain environment. There will be capital flight, and that could affect exchange rates, depreciation, could affect our livelihood, our cost of doing business, etc. It could even affect government itself in terms of the programs and that it has earmarked. It could affect contractors who have to be paid, and that could also affect their loan default rate. It could also affect their families and so on and so forth. So any uncertainty has repercussions on the entire economy.
On the monetary sector, he said the government ought to promote production to boost supply of goods to curtail inflation. James Asian's report for Joy Business.
Now, asset management firm Tessa Capital has introduced new collective investment schemes and a digital self-service app onto the investment market. According to the managing director of Tessa Capital, Eugenia Bashir, the new products are to bridge the gap between the rich and the poor. Here's more.
Quest to create wealth for all, Tessa Capital has restructured the Kiddie Fund Limited to the Tessa Future Fund, which previously focused on getting guardians to invest for the awards. Other new collective investment schemes, including the Tessa Treasury Trust and the digital self-service app, are to make investing and investment process easy and accessible to everyone. Here's Managing Director for Tessa Capital, Eugenia Bashir, at the launch of the new collective schemes.
I'm glad to welcome you to this ceremony, which marks the unveiling of Tessa Capital's collective investment schemes, as well as our digital self-service hub. Today marks another step forward in Tessa Capital's quest to making investing and the investment process easy and accessible to everyone. Investing should not be the preserve of a few affluent people. We aim to change the rhetoric by creating avenues for everyone, including those who do not have a lot, to create wealth through investment, while those who have a lot also continue to make. Collective investment schemes are a key tool to achieving this. Collective investment schemes allow anyone to take advantage of skill to benefit from diversification of securities, the TESA Future Fund Limited was formerly Kiddie Fund Limited. Its focus was on getting parents, guardians to invest for their children or wards. The focus of the fund has been widened to accommodate the investment needs of any investor with a long-term investment horizon. Hence the name change to the TESA Future Fund. Now our new product, the TESA Treasury Trust. The TESA Treasury Trust is a money market unit trust that will invest in government and quasi-government securities such as treasury bills, notes, and bonds. This takes away issuer risk from the trust and can therefore be said to be a zero-risk fund. To enable anyone and everyone invest in the TESA Treasury Trust, there's no minimum investment amount, which means that you can invest any amount. 1 CD, 10 CDs, 100 CDs, whatever you can invest at any point.
Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Reverend Daniel Ogbami Tete, said that investment should come with a sense of responsibility of the regulator, market operator, and investor.
To the responsibility of the investing public. Remember, I'm saying it's a shared responsibility. As a regulator, I have a role, the market operators have a role, but the investing public, please, it's important for the investing public to understand their responsibility. When it comes to investment, at the minimum, you must seek to understand the product. Please do not say that, oh, my brother or my cousin or my sister or my uncle says it is good, and so I'm also committing resources. Seek to understand the product.
The TESA Future Fund is a balanced mutual fund which invests in a carefully selected mix of equities and fixed income securities. The fund is ideal for investors with medium to long-term wealth-growing objectives and who are willing to accept some risk in exchange for return. And the TESA Treasury Trust is a money market unit trust that will invest primarily in treasury securities, including treasury bills, notes and bonds, or treasury-backed securities. James Ishan's report for Joy Business.
More news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business.
Welcome back to Joy News Prime. To the rest of our stories, Ghana will ramp up its COVID-19 vaccination campaign next month and make the vaccine mandatory for targeted groups, including all public sector and health workers from January 22. Health Service Director General Patrick Kumasi said on Sunday, Ghana, like most African nations, has seen a sluggish uptake in COVID-19 vaccinations despite an increase in supplies. Only 1.4 million people out of Ghana's population of 30 million are fully vaccinated. The government will hold a vaccination drive in December, after which the vaccine will be mandatory for employees in all arms of government, health workers, security personnel, staff and students of secondary and tertiary education, and commercial drivers, according to Dr. Kumasi.
These are the proposed mandates which we are going to pursue. With the increasing availability of vaccines and reasonable quantity in the pipeline, we are declaring December as the month for vaccination, or let's say vaccination for Christmas. So December is going to be declared as the month of vaccination, and it will be launched by the Honorable Minister on 30th of November 2021, that's Tuesday coming. This mandate, which I'm going to announce, will be applicable in January 2023 at specific groups and monies as soon as, and this mandate become effective as soon as the campaign is over. We have them in two sections. They are going to have proposed groups that will be covered under the mandate and the venues. We are looking at all the three arms of government. All health workers have been given the opportunity to vaccinate, and they stay in a very strategic position that either they can share among themselves or give to their patients. So that's why we prioritize that. And remember, we are talking about these are the people who have been prioritized at the beginning, even when we had very few vaccines. And so we expect that. All security personnel will be covered. They should be vaccinated. All staff and students in secondary and tertiary schools should be vaccinated. And so secondary schools are being given the opportunity. Started last week, Friday, from 27th, almost all regions are doing vaccination of Pfizer in schools. And so in January, you should be fully vaccinated before you come back to school. All workers in government institutions and parastatals, all commercial drivers and their mates are expected to be vaccinated at the end of that. That's where they're commanded to cover.
Meanwhile, commercial drivers have expressed mixed reactions to the compulsory vaccinations.
To say we should by force to get vaccinated, I don't think that's right. If you want, you can go and get vaccinated. So for me, I don't see it. For me, it's not important. It's not by force. It shouldn't be by force. If you're not vaccinated, you not go here. You know that one. For me, to not work. We're in Ghana.
When you go to some place, government go worry you about vaccination or what. That one there is not anything for me. Me pay vaccination. Why? Because I'm out for church. Say say we are later 2 years time, 1 year time. Ebe to my affect you. Intimidate and quarrel.
For me, it's good. You see, for me, it's good. And now I think the sickness, the COVID, the virus has come down small. That we have to continue to those that we have not taken our own. We have to continue.
Yeah, it's very good. The government should impose that. Yeah, because myself, I'm a station master over here, but I've taken my first shot. I'm waiting for the second shot, so it's very good advice.
Oh, it's good because the virus is in. So when you take the injection, it will maintain you well, so that you can't get the virus again. So if I take mine, it's good to me. Maybe on the 14th, I'm going to take the next one. So it's good.
I think it's not necessary because at times we don't have time.
Only 21% of the targeted population have received the first dose, while 7% are fully vaccinated. Health Ministry data shows Ghana has to date recorded 131,083 coronavirus cases and 1,220 deaths. Dr. Kumabuaji says the Health Ministry hopes to double daily vaccinations from over 142,000 currently as the country braces for a potential surge in cases after the holiday.
We have done about 5.41 million people have been vaccinated. Like I said, we have the vaccines that we've had them the last 4 weeks, and so we're going to ramp up the vaccination. If you look at the next slide, you can see that the real daily vaccination numbers are soaring. We reached about 142,000 doses a day. And that is how we're going to continue to make sure that we live up to the vaccination, which has led to about 21% of the expected population have been given at least their first dose, and 7% are fully vaccinated. But that is looking at the way we are ramped up. If the people cooperate and everybody comes for their vaccine, we can significantly meet these targets that we set for ourselves. This 145, we can do 142,000 a day. We can double that. And what we are going to do is doubling our teams to ensure that we do more. All we need is people should come for their vaccine.
President Akufo-Addo says he disagrees with suggestions that the Chief Justice and other Supreme Court justices be removed from the General Legal Council. Speaking at the International Conference on the Future of Legal Education in Ghana and Africa, organized by the University of Ghana School of Law, the president called for the fast-tracking of a new bill prepared by the Attorney General to reform legal education and practice. Michael Ashali has more.
Been a lot of talk recently about reforming education and practice of law in the country. Evidently, there is a split in opinion on how to go about this. Through a private member's bill, some MPs have proposed the removal of the Chief Justice and other Supreme Court justices from the General Legal Council. But President Akufo-Addo is against that. He believes the justices play an important role on the council and must be maintained. The president maintains the General Legal Council must have the final say with the proposed amendments to the Legal Professions Act.
I believe that even if the new Legal Professions Act, which is under consideration, provides for a multiplicity of law schools to regulate the teaching of the professional examinations and break the monopoly of the General Legal Council in that regard, there can be no substitute for the General Legal Council being responsible for the maintenance of standards in the new system. A reform of the system under which legal education currently operates is necessary to accommodate our current realities. The system we come up with will have to be guided by a strong element of sustainability. Sustainable legal education will have as its base the establishment of a regime that will consider the pressing needs of the growing law student population and the expected demands of the generation unborn that will study law. It will be qualitative in its operation, but with a fair and balanced quantitative selection system.
The president also tasked the Attorney General to fast-track processes to present the bill before Parliament for passage into law.
I've already asked the Attorney General to fast-track the process of consultations on the new legal professional bill and lay it before Cabinet and ultimately Parliament as soon as possible. This bill aims to address comprehensively the issues of legal education in Ghana today. I have to restate my conviction that the General Legal Council must have the final say.
Also at this event was Minister for Justice and Attorney General Godfred Yeboah-Dame, who says extensive consultation will be done before the draft bill goes to Parliament.
Mr. President, the destiny of the nation is at stake. A lot of honesty, good faith, and dispassionate introspection is required for this conference to achieve what I term the twin objective of broadening access to legal education whilst preserving the integrity and quality of the profession.
Engineers at Ghana Grid Company Limited, Gridco, say its damaged central transmission line is the cause of the recent power outages in Greater Kumasi. Two of the central transmission lines have been damaged by a communications tower in the northern district of the Gridco setup. The situation has compelled the power generating company to ration power in the evening. Prince Appiah has more in the following report.
For the past 2 weeks, the power situation in Greater Kumasi have been unstable and unbearable. As a result, electricity consumers, especially small businesses, have been reeling under the current power challenges.
Yesterday, in fact, we really have a terrible night. Our light went off again and again for about 8 times during the night till daybreak. So when I wake up, most of my bulbs, the veranda, the bedroom, the hall, everything got bent. I don't know what will happen today again.
At the end of the day,
yesterday around 8:30 in the evening, I was with a couple of friends, having a conversation when the light just went off, and it just came back off on and off, and we noticed that every time it came back on, the lights were too bright, like it was brighter than usual. Very bright. I had to even cover my eyes, and that was when I started seeing some of the bulbs in the area just going off, like boom, 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 like that.
But engineers at the Ghana Grid Company Limited, Gridco, say 2 of its central transmission lines have been damaged by a communication tower in the northern part of the Gridco setup. Northern Network Services for Gridco, Vincent Boache, explains this has been the cause of the power situation in.
And that's how we wrap up the bulletin tonight. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. Many thanks for watching. For more news, log on to myjournalonline.com. There's more of and updates of all the developing stories when you log on. Enjoy the rest of our programs.